everyone, welcome. We are here today to dive into a very important conversation that we are hearing rise up around our community, and that is marketing and messaging in this season of uncertainty around the coronavirus pandemic. I am incredibly honored and excited to be joined today by a friend, an upward leader, a HoneyBook educator, and an extraordinary human being, Allison Sugahara. For over a decade, Allison has been obsessively honing her niche in brand design and marketing strategy in order to help creative business owners promote their passions. She loves pouring back into her communities through sharing knowledge and experiences and cultivating authentic connections. Allison has worked with a wide range of brands, from small local businesses to startups to influential businesses like vintage electric bikes and even corporate companies like Disney. Her mission is to continue to open up space for creativity-driven entrepreneurs and help them to expand and prosper by doing what they love. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with our community.
Of course, it's the least I can do, and thank you for having me. That was a very nice intro. Should I just leave now?
No, you're so sweet. I mean, you and I have been talking a lot behind the scenes, even prior to this Q&A, and one of the things we keep hearing over and over again is around how to craft your marketing and messaging in a challenging time like this. So let's just even start there. How should business owners be showing up for their community during a global pandemic?
I would say that there's no one size fits all method here. However you feel authentically called to create or show up is exactly how you should show up, because it's a sensitive time. It's a little bit weird for a lot of people, and a lot of people might have a lot of energy too. So if you feel like you want to be that business owner that is creating resources and rallying the troops and really just being a source of guidance, that is perfectly okay. If you want to be somebody who shows up more vulnerably and maybe kind of decides, I'm going to share my story here, I'm here for moral support if you need me, that's perfectly okay too. If you want to be the meme queen and post funny content to just lift people up, I think, again, as long as you're being mindful and empathetic, as long as you're tapping into your authenticity, that is how you should show up.
That's awesome. Do you know of any brands that have been doing this well, or do you have any examples for us of businesses who have kind of been maybe taking their daily brand messaging and pivoting it or shifting it in light of what's going on in a really strong way?
Well, first of all, HoneyBook. I mean, because you guys were kind of leading the charge when it came to creating a resource hub, when it came to really offering support from like a legal standpoint, what you should actually put in your emails, like very specific content. It has been incredibly helpful, and it's something that I've passed along to other people. In the same kind of bucket, I would say Tyler J. Bacall. He has been so awesome. He rallied like in a second and put a Facebook group together. Jordan Jones, one of my like internet besties, she has also created a very specific niche for faith-filled entrepreneurs. And that is like, she just created a, Facebook group in 5 seconds. And so it's been really refreshing to see those businesses show up to help you, because it kind of makes you feel like you don't have to, like, you can show up that way too, but I feel like I can take a breather almost, because I've got the support of other business owners and businesses that are just doing that. On the moral support side, I really love Olivia Herrick Design. I think she's kind of been showing up, like her designs make me feel really calm when I look at them, when they come through my Instagram feed. It's just like a nice inspirational quote, and all of them are centered around, it's okay to feel how you're feeling. And I love that. There are also some bigger brands like Loom. Do you guys use Loom? I know everybody's using Zoom, but I'm like all hype on Loom right now. And they are doing free trials for their users up until I think July. And then They're also providing a free pro account for educators, which I think is really important right now. One more, I think for all the designers out there, actually, you're going to want to know this if you don't know already. Adobe Suite is offering 2 months off. So there's actually a link on my site, but I can give that to you later, because you're going to want to take advantage of that.
That's amazing. All of those are really good examples. I think one thing that you pointed out with Olivia Herrick, I've seen so many creatives leveraging their genius, leveraging their creativity in order to speak to all of us in this season. And, we've seen astronauts reading books from space. We've seen John Legend and Christy Teigen doing a piano side concert, in their house, right? We've seen creators within our own community stepping up to do different unique things. I saw a designer doing like new save the dates for couples that have to reschedule. And it's like, we found a better date. We have, small business owners who are sewing masks right now and are sharing how to sew with other creatives that now have more. Like, there's so much that we can be doing as brands to communicate to our clients, to serve their needs, and also to be a part of this global community that we're walking through the situation together. I love all of those examples. I think they're amazing.
Actually, that totally reminded me of one of my videographer friends who created kind of an animated video, and he read a story, like a storybook. And he said, for all my friends with kids, this is for you. And it was enlightening. It was genius. It was hilarious. And I didn't even know that he had that skill. Like, he had these voices that he did. And I was like, this is almost kind of cool, because you're not only serving your community and other parts of your community that you don't typically serve, but you're also showcasing this whole side of creativity that I never knew you had,
Right.
It's been really cool.
That's awesome. Well, let's pivot though into mistakes, because although I think there's so much opportunity, I also think in situations like this, brands can get into trouble. And so what would you say some of the mistakes that brands are likely to make in a season like this? Like, what can we be looking out for?
Definitely auditing your content. And I was almost guilty of this, actually, because right when everything was really starting to happen and we didn't know how serious it really was going to become, I had a blog post set up to go out, already queued up, that was like top 5 places to work remotely in the Bay Area. And I even asked my mom, I was like, is this a good idea? And she said, people might think you're clueless. And I thought about that. And I'm like, I don't want to be known as this brand that isn't in touch with what's going on.
Right.
So dropped it, pivoted. But I think I had a couple emails that even came out my way that made me feel like it was insensitive. And I know that wasn't the intention, but going through and auditing what you're actually putting out there is crucial right now. I also think that making sure you're showing up for your community by responding to messages and DMs is also very important, because again, there was a moment where we didn't know how serious it was. And I was very vulnerable in a Facebook group and nobody responded. And I totally understand the lack of response or that kind of weird fine line, but I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody. And so you don't want to make your community feel like they can't really lean on you for support.
Oh, this advice is fantastic. And I think it transcends even the current season that we're in, because, throughout the course of any given year, there are a lot of different situations that pop up. Right now, we're in a global pandemic, a national state of emergency, a global emergency. But we also have, regional things that will happen. We'll have different types of circumstances that unfold. And I think this is really critical advice. I want to highlight it again. She's reminding you, when things like this pop up, immediately audit your content. So especially if you have those pre-scheduled messages, that's the place or pre-scheduled content at all, right? Social, blog, email marketing, you name it, just to take that new approach with new eyes and a fresh perspective to kind of analyze it and audit it. I think that is so important and so valuable.
You bringing up regionally, that's really interesting, because that's exactly what was happening. For me, it was like a Facebook group that was it touched all points in the US. I'm out here in California,
right,
where it's very serious, and we were, I think one of the first states to shelter in place. So it was very heavy over here, but nobody could feel or understand or see what was going on, which is why I felt the need to kind of contact the outside world. So being empathetic too is a really key point here too, just to make sure that you're understanding that everybody processes this differently.
I think that's great advice. Now, rewinding to what feels like a decade ago, but was only about 3 months ago, January of 2020. What a different world we lived in at that point in time. So much hope. No, I know, but really very different season. But at the beginning of 2020, for some of us even, I always joke, like the Enneagram 3s, the overachievers, this is really the end of 2019. We set out our strategy for the year. And, we crafted a plan, all of us did, a lot of us did, with goals and what we wanted to accomplish and how we wanted to market our businesses. And frankly, for a lot of us, that has been completely thrown out the window with COVID-19. And so I would love to know, what recommendations do you have for business owners who are now in need of a new strategy, who now need to kind of change what they had originally planned to do heading into Q2?
It's funny because we all probably feel this way. This was the first year that I personally was like, yeah, I've got my routines, I've got my systems. I felt super on top of it. And then just never mind, it all got thrown out the window. But I'm kind of used to this. So I think I have a good plan on how to help you guys. Building a loose framework is where you want to start because everything's always changing. I think this is a good reminder that no matter how perfect you're trying to be, no matter how much you want to prepare, you cannot prepare for what goes on in your business. I mean, it's the nature of our job as entrepreneurs. We have to be flexible, agile. So building that loose framework, starting with deciding how you want to show up for your community. Like I said before, tap into that authenticity and really dig into what way you're going to show up for your community. It can be a mixed bag. You don't always have to be that person that's providing resources, but you can provide resources and offer comedic relief. You can be all of that. So just kind of identify how you want to show up. And then aside from that, so that would be number one. Number two would be identifying all of the audiences or people that you can actually serve. This is a very unique time because let's take photographers, for instance. They serve, wedding photographer. They serve brides and grooms. And maybe there is a cap on what they can, provide for their client right now. I think there's probably a way you can be really creative with what you're, creating. But at the same time, maybe there's a whole nother audience, within your own industry that you're not even considering that you could be helping, So just kind of taking inventory on all the industries that you could be helping. 3 would be creating content for those audiences. So sourcing all of your content, doing all your research, and then creating the content. But this is another tricky thing because it always is ever changing. So I would also suggest making a full list of all possible things you could create at this time, prioritize it, and then pick what's right for you and create that way. And then definitely being strategic with how you're putting that message out. For example, a couple weeks ago, Derek and I kind of got ahead of everything, created a blog post that did really well. Our subject line in our email it had the word coronavirus in it. It was by far the biggest, the highest open rate we've ever had. The following week, everyone's overloaded on coronavirus. So we knew maybe don't put that in there. I think our subject line was, we found the toilet paper. So, playing more into the comedic side, just really being strategic with what you're sharing. It had nothing to do with what we were actually sharing, but we knew that what we were sharing was important. And lastly, really getting comfortable and okay with pivoting, experimenting, and maneuvering within this framework, because again, it's always ever changing. It's gonna be changing by the hour, not just by the day. And so being okay with maneuvering within that framework, but also taking a step back to really observe what's going on, listen to what's happening before you take action.
I think that's so valuable. And it almost leaps ahead of a question I was going to ask just around how you all have pivoted, because this is something you and I have talked about. I mean, I think things are happening so quickly in our world, and especially within, what we should be providing or communicating as small business owners. And we felt this on the HoneyBook side because we've been creating templates for people. We've been creating resources. And it's funny, we will be working on something and then someone will go on television, make a new announcement, and what we were working on is no longer relevant. And now we are already pivoting to a resource that's needed 5 minutes ago. And so I think that what I'm hearing you say, and I think is so important, is just that need to be relevant with what is happening right now for your audience, and to understand that what was relevant and working yesterday might not be working or relevant today. And you mentioned that with your subject lines and the type of content that you're producing. And I just think it's so important and so critical. And so I would love to kind of close out with this. Very simply put, if there was one bit of final advice that you could give business owners in this season as they approach their messaging and their marketing, what would it be?
I would say don't pay attention to all the things that are going on outside of what you're doing. Don't pay attention to all the things that you think you should be doing. The biggest thing for me that has been so helpful is creating space for myself, because we are all processing what's going on day by day, hour by hour. For me, I've been called to do different things that have nothing to do with my creative business. Like, I've been called to play music, doodle. I think you were talking about that today. Like, you've been called to doodle. It's an outlet for me, almost like meditation. And I do meditate too, but like, it's my version of meditation. I go through different seasons of wanting to do creative things that fulfill me and fill my cup. That has opened up space to be able to think, sit back, really understand what might be happening and try to anticipate what I should be able to create. And again, it also will help you kind of let go of the fact that something you were creating yesterday might not be relevant today or tomorrow. So giving yourself that space is crucial, especially in times like this.
Oh my gosh. Gold. Mic drop. Yes. Open hands, open heart, and space in order for us to kind of navigate the road ahead. I think that is phenomenal advice. Allison, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Anything to help. If you guys need, if you want to reach out to me for any additional advice or just like some support, please do not hesitate to reach out.
And where can they find you?
You can go to our Instagram, which is Polygon Market, or you can go to our website, polygonmarket.com.
Amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you.